Hi, buddy.
Hi.
You were saying that the topics you cannot talk about in psychology are what?
Yeah, so we start the podcast with the most controversial thing. So I think that psychologists have to be really careful in how they talk about like genetics, like traits being heritable.
Sure.
So there are a lot of like twin studies essentially where they look at like twins who were either raised together or raised apart to see how much certain traits are genetically heritable versus how much your environment or your family environment or your social environment impacts you. And what a lot of these twin studies have found is things like your intelligence, your personality, your political beliefs, they are highly heritable. They have a strong genetic component somewhere around like, 50% heritable. They try to do estimates. Wow. They're always like very fuzzy estimates, so it's hard to say exactly like how much of it is genetic, but a large portion of it is heritable.
Sure.
And I think that is a tough thing to talk about because sometimes people might draw like more, conservative conclusions from it. Or like right-wingers could latch on to those findings to say like, it's not worth it to invest in educational interventions or to try to like,
I see.
Things like that, right?
And is it a struggle? Like, is it like... It must be tough when a psychologist is like, I'd like to explore this thing, but I know people are going to use it poorly, or it might... I don't know. It depends on if you're a utilitarian or you're like there's a degree of like, well, could you take something from this that is just going to be terrible? Yeah, no, it's always a balance. And there was a researcher, she released a book called, I forgot her name. She released a book called The Genetic Lottery. And she argued that, so like a lot of things are highly heritable, like intelligence and, our personality and et cetera. And she was arguing that we should like believe in like leftist policies because things are highly heritable. For instance, like we shouldn't just have like the most intelligent people get the most amount of money in society. So she was trying to make like a leftist case for like trusting like these sort of genetics-based studies. And she got a lot of controversy about that position. Even from, was it just from the right or was it I think it was from the left. I think the left wasn't fully buying that position, even though she was like sort of advocating like a leftist stance on how we should interpret genetics research. So, I mean, genetics is like not my area of expertise, so I'm like, I might be like misstating it or something like this. Though, but, do you guys band together when someone gets dragged, like do you guys like or is it cutthroat? You're like, well, bye, shouldn't have published that result. I think it's very cutthroat. And I've also been involved like in academic debates with other researchers and stuff, and it's I think it's a competitive field, and a lot of it is also like a very status driven field, and also academics are very much on Twitter, so like academic Twitter is very much a thing, and like academic Twitter, like a lot of areas of Twitter can be like a very toxic place where like academics are kind of all at each other. So
how often, like, because it feels like it's daunting to be like, we have to weigh every possible way that the public could use these findings. Like the corruption of science. Before doing the study. Or is that something like you do the study and then you're like, oh, here's how the world could use this. Let's come up with all the ways and then just abandon the study, or is it like more so before the fact? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, okay, so here's a relevant controversy. There was a big controversy. I don't know if these niche academic controversies are interesting, but I'll try to explain. So, yeah. There's this journal, Nature Human Behavior, that I'm going to publish in soon. They're a pretty good journal. They released sort of like an ethics statement where they argued that they would consider in part of their like editorial decisions about whether to accept an article, like how the findings might be like used and how they might potentially perpetuate harm, especially if they show that like, if your finding is that like one group is, I think that's how they phrased it. Like if you present findings that show that one group is sort of superior than another group and your findings might do harm, we might consider like the ethics of how this study will be presented to the public. Yeah. And that got a lot of controversy because a lot of people were saying like we should just be truth tellers as science. We should just be like sharing
stand-up comedy all over
truth.
Again. That's what stand-up, we're like, we're just truth tellers up there, man.
Yeah. And I think it was like...
It's funny. Everyone really wants to believe that their field is... their position is fully integral.
I know. And then those people are often the ones who don't care as much about the truth, who are advocating for truth. So it is a dicey area. I mean, I think you have to think about it in some way.
Sure.
I think your ultimate goal should be truth, but you can also have secondary goals like ethics and how you communicate things. And I mean, I'm very I think I'm careful as like a TikTok science communicator because I know that like people don't pay attention to much more than like the first 10 seconds. So you want to you want to present things that won't be misinterpreted. You want to be very like clear with your conclusions. You want to think of like all possible ways the internet might, yeah.
So let's say kick off this music and we'll introduce everyone to what the fuck's going on.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a study recently that any conclusion of something you read recently where you're like, it was a real bummer. It was real like, oh, that's not good. Or that's sad. Any studies that made you feel more hopeless about the world?
Doesn't have to be recent either. It could be.
You can remember that first, like.
Oh, that's a bummer.
I'm trying to think because I was talking about how I took AP Psych in high school, and how like it was. One of the reasons I do think it was intense was like, I wasn't ready to talk about free will or no free will or consciousness. Or the brain split stuff where you're like, are there two people existing? What's going on?
Love that study.
Has a study ever made you feel sad?
Yeah. Okay. So the study that has made me probably feel the most sad that our field is grappling with a lot is, have you guys heard of the replication crisis in psychology?
No.
Oh, really?
It's about trying to do a test to make sure the original hypothesis was correct. The original conclusion was correct.
Basically. And there was a big study that came out about
idiot.
this. And look at you. See that AP Psych class paid off.
Yeah.
But I think this was, there was a big study on this done in maybe 2013 or 2015, and it really sort of shook the field. So a bunch of scientists got together and they tried to replicate 100 psychology studies, like classic psychology studies in top journals to estimate how reproducible psychological science is. And they were only able to get like the same results in about 33% of those studies.
Incredible. So, and that's like oh, it's all going to collapse. Like that's a disaster.
It did really shake the field
a
lot.
There are books based on each of those individual incorrect studies.
Yeah, and we were talking about Malcolm Gladwell before you came here. So a lot of like Malcolm Gladwell's early books, like Blink, about how like little tiny things in your environment influence your behavior. Those things didn't replicate. Like, so an example of like study, and it's a bit silly that we all believed in this study. There was a really popular study. It has like about like 5,000 citations on Google Scholar, which is a lot of citations for a paper, that basically said that if you like prime the idea of oldness by like showing people words like Florida or Walker or retirement home.
Yeah.
And then you have someone you have someone walk and you covertly measure how fast they walk slower because they're primed by the idea of like elderly words. And this study got a lot of attention by showing that like little subconscious things in our environment influence us in these like profound ways.
If you go to a retirement home and you want them to be sprightly, you put up pictures of Sonic.
Yeah.
You put up like Red Bulls, and that's going to make them move faster.
Yeah, well,
conversely.
that was the thinking based on the study, but this study did not replicate. And like all sorts of studies like this like didn't replicate. Like there were all these like there was one big study called like the Lady Macbeth effect that basically showed that like if you wash your hands, it makes you feel less guilty. Basically, like you wash away the guilt.
This is the problem with theater kids going into other fields. That were like, I need to make this degree worth it.
But they do show that in movies. Like think of all the movies you've seen where people like have murdered or have.
But it's a metaphor. It's like a visual metaphor.
I know, but they use it too much. I feel like it's like that thing of like it's again communicating that idea though.
Sure.
Like, like I did something.
You're just saying because you never wash your hands after you masturbate.
Exactly.
So that was one where people.
That didn't replicate.
Of course.
But like because it was so surprising, essentially, like it got like a ton of media coverage, it got a ton of citations. There was a study that found that psychology studies that didn't replicate basically get cited more and get covered in the media more. Basically, these unreplicable studies just get really popular because they're surprising, and they're surprising because they're like literally not true.
Of course. Oh, I have so much to talk about. Listen, this is the downside.
1, 2, 3. Downside.
You're listening to The Downside.
The Downside.
Now, you don't have to
Gianmarco
put on your
Soresi.
headphones, just so you know. I didn't present them to you. It's been a mess. Just so everyone knows, just in case we don't put the intro part here. Yeah, that's good. This is Russell's fault. So, Russell, how you doing? Can I ask you real quick? This is a little bit out there. Psychologically speaking, would you say for two men in their 30s to stay friends, what's the appropriate ratio of each calling each other to check in on how they're doing? Because Russell believes that it's 100% the other person's responsibility. Has anyone ever done this test? Okay. Has anyone ever studied this?
Okay, let's talk about this. Let's dive into because I saw you last Monday. We did a show together. We went out afterwards. I had a drink. You sat there and had water and ripped up your straw.
Because I'm on hold. I'm almost done.
Last day. But okay, so we did that. I'm pretty sure we talked Tuesday, Wednesday at some point. Right? Through text.
But it was like worky.
I went away on Thursday.
You went to New Orleans.
Yeah. And I will say I had some issues with my phone in New Orleans.
What do you mean?
Well, I had to
you wrote me. You said the image didn't load.
Well,
and I was like,
you sent me a thing about big titties. You sent me
no. I sent you a tweet. It was not like I didn't.
Okay, a reference big titties.
It referenced, but it was a joke about.
I know. I'm
you make it sound like
I'm not gonna get into it. No,
I said what you wanted. Your text to me.
So, anyways, you sent me a thing, but the picture didn't load, so I couldn't see the screenshot. So then I was like, that's weird.
New Orleans is in America, right?
It's in America. Okay. But for some reason, something happened where I didn't. So then I noticed people on the trip, they were sending me photos of the trip, and I was not getting those photos. I was like, what's going on with this? So I had to do a phone update, which caused some things to get lost in the shuffle. And then on the way home, I was like, oh, yeah, Gianmarco sent me this big titty thing.
Okay, this is not fair.
I need to see the big titty thing.
No. We're not going to talk about what it is. But it's a basically someone's tweet referencing big titties.
Okay.
And it was a funny little inside joke. So anyways, so then I responded on Sunday night to that. And then here we are today on Tuesday. So not that much time went by. Thursday to Sunday, I was on vacation. I wasn't really texting a lot. I was, trying to be in the moment. And then it's just I've been catching up on things.
Yeah, okay. New Orleans was okay?
It was amazing.
I had a disaster weekend.
Oh no.
I can't get I'm so excited to talk to
I know.
Steve. You can talk with us now. You don't have to be quiet.
Yeah.
How are you? We're here with Steve Rathje.
I'm good. Yeah. You pronounced it right. Yeah.
Psychologist, is that the leading term?
Yeah, so I'm a psychology researcher. I'm a postdoctoral researcher at NYU right now. Yeah. Just finished my PhD over the University of Cambridge in England.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I truly am so excited. I love psychology. I was realizing just as I was like watching all your TikToks was whenever I have to
Thank
write
you for
like,
watching them.
Of course, whenever I have to write like a TV show pitch, they don't want you to be a comedian. Like because everyone in the profession is in the arts, so they want their character that's about them to be an actor or a comedian.
Yeah.
Right. And it's unfair.
Right.
But I'm always like, oh, what profession would I do that's not arts related? And then like doing this, I was like, right, I've always loved psychology to a degree. And I'm like, that's the field that if I needed to research something for a show, I would enjoy that.
That'd be awesome. You should just like make your character me. Essentially.
Sure.
Model your character after me.
I mean, you were a theater kid. We talked also about theater.
Yeah. I watched.
He's in Titanic right now.
I know. I've heard Titanic's amazing. Like I've heard like incredible things. I really want to.
I wanted to talk about one of his videos.
If you're gonna do ads for your show mid-show, I'd like some kickback from the show.
You mentioned it. What you did? What do you want to just ignore?
I didn't say come see it. I just said it as a statement of fact.
You brought
Russell
it up.
8 times a week happens to be at this place.
Yeah.
No need to go.
Let's see. I don't know. I'm going to do it again for the first time in over a week tonight. Yeah, I don't know. I did have a question about one of your videos. Not a question, more of a statement. I want to talk about it.
He thinks astrology is real, but go ahead.
Stop.
It's okay to like astrology. Astrology's fun.
I'm not an astrology boy.
Okay.
He hates it.
We'll go into it. So
it.
if you're listening, this is the downside. This is a place where we talk about negatives, complain, kvetch. And I think it's easy to complain and kvetch when you're talking about the psychology.
Yeah.
This is coming out on Valentine's Day, so we should talk about love.
We should.
Astrological compatibility.
Exactly.
Yes.
And if you're listening, if you're a fan, please join the Patreon. Patreon.com/downside.
Patreon's exploded.
It's exploded.
Yeah.
It's I'm about to get the tattoo that I promised for the first 50. There's other perks
You're
coming
getting a
in.
tattoo.
Yes.
Of what?
It's so
Of
we're
me.
on a sketch team, and this is what I'm taking with right now. So this was a picture we took a long time ago, and I thought I'd keep it real simple, and it's going to be like either 5 circles, not perfectly on top of each other, but kind of overlapping in the way that picture does.
Okay.
And then just say like either an estimated whatever 2015 or just Uncle Function or UF. Something small and cute.
Yeah.
Why, are you
Nice.
interested in tattoos? You just seemed so excited.
No, I just thought that was cool. You were
Thank you.
doing a tattoo for the podcast. Like that's
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll see if you're ready to move on. So
well, I don't
patreon.com/downside. You get all our AMP live episodes that we did for Amazon. Our most recent, it's coming soon, our live episode with former adult actress, current stand-up comedian Aaliyah
It's a good one.
Janine. It's such a good episode. And then you just support the show. And we're adding something new. If you see me at a show, like headlining, if you come up and say that you're a Downside listener, I will have a free sticker for you of a new design of Russell and me, illustrated by Branson Reese.
Yes.
Fantastic illustrator.
that sounds awesome.
Yes.
Thank you.
Wow.
So, Russell,
Okay, so
what
the
study
video-
do you disagree with?
No. I agree with it. I just thought it made me feel bad because I knew that I would be like one of the people that like didn't do a very good job of it.
Sure.
Not that there's a good or bad, but that study where the smoke comes in the room.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, I definitely would burn alive.
Break down what it was.
I would. Okay, so basically, people. The study is people. How did I describe
Okay.
it?
Do you want me to?
Yeah.
Wait, let me do it and you tell me if I did it correctly.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The study analyzes how people will react when there's something strange going on, whether they will. It
no
feels
one else is
related.
reacting.
It feels related to the bystander effect in a certain degree.
Totally.
And part of
Yeah.
it is you're in a room. They think they're waiting to do a psychological study,
Yeah.
and smoke starts emerging from a closet under something.
Yeah.
And they saw that when the person. They're basically surrounded by actors.
Yeah.
And they found that when there were actors, the person was not alone. They only reported the smoke, which you would think would be fire, 25% of the time.
I
And
don't
then-
remember the percentages.
And then if they were alone, they would report it higher. So it was the
Yeah.
idea that social cue, people being there, you're like, well, if no one else is freaking out, it's probably fine.
Can I tell you something really?
That's
just to
basically
add a-
exactly
just
right.
to add
Good
a
job.
layer to all
AP
this.
Psych paid
I
off.
love psychology.
Yeah.
Just to add a layer to all this, I was so before I came here, I had a meeting, but I
There was a fire that you didn't catch.
No, quite honestly, listen, I was in my house and I was alone with just animals with me, and I was watching some of your videos to be like, okay, this is who we're talking to today. So I watched that video. I thought to myself, I'm cooking some chicken to bring for my dinner tonight. It doesn't smell. It smells burny. It smells like the house is burning. But I say no. Maybe I look in the oven. Doesn't look like anything's burning, but it smells burny. But then I'm like, maybe just like psychologically, I'm watching this video and I'm like putting this burny thing on. So then I'm like, just to be safe, I'll turn off the oven and like open the windows for a little bit. But then it still smells burny. But I'm like, okay, well, oven's off, windows open, close the windows, have to leave. Okay. Half an hour
I love
later.
you see this video. You're so stressed. You start like checking every possibility.
No, exactly. Half an hour later, I get a text from Nicole. Is everything okay at the apartment? The neighbors say that our apartment smells like it's on fire. And I'm like, so it wasn't just that. So luckily we have a key. They go and check. They can't find anything either. And it seems like something happened. Something's in the oven somewhere. Like maybe a piece of plastic fell down, something. But it's not on fire. But I didn't really give it a good, let's investigate the fire that much. And I was alone. I wasn't even pressured by other people being like, I just was like, probably fine. But anyways, I know.
Well, tough. What are you going to do? At a certain point, you're going to call the fire department?
I don't know, but it did smell bad. It smelled like plastic burning.
See, I think there'd be like these studies could become infinite in that you could study if people see this study, does it change how they behave 5 years from now, 10 years from now?
Yeah.
Right.
I remember I had a friend, Chris Cafaro, he thought he smelled CO2.
Yes.
And he called 911 and like the full
and they made
brigade.
fun of him, didn't they?
Yeah, they made fun of him, or they came in and it was something stupid.
Yeah.
Better safe than sorry.
Exactly. But anyways, that study, I thought, there's smoke coming in the room, and if no one else reacts, are you gonna say something? And I know that I wouldn't. I know that I'd look around. I mean, there's like factors too, being like, if you know that you're there for a psychological study, I can't see how it wouldn't play into being like, oh, well, maybe this is part of it.
Yeah, I feel like nowadays people would be more skeptical now that like psychology's bigger and like the discourse and everything. People would be like, ooh, has the study already started?
Yeah.
Like people would kind of catch on.
But I do think if I didn't know, I would probably just be like looking around, making sure everyone else is cool with it, and be like, oh, maybe there's just smokes in here.
I feel awkward about like raising a fuss. I would definitely kind of like go along.
Speaking of AP psychology, like studies that stuck with me, like the learning about the bystander effect. Like I feel like that sticks with me for the rest of my life. Like something about that. Yeah. The bystander effect.
Yes.
But like it's something I think it's partly because the story that they used to illustrate it was the woman who got stabbed by the guy.
Kitty Genovese. Yeah, that was the name. Yeah.
Did that inspire the study, or that was just the example they used?
So I think that did inspire the study. Yeah, basically. So it was like this like murder that happened, and apparently there were in New York.
I didn't know that.
I don't remember a lot of the facts, but apparently there were a lot of bystanders.
But it was she was stabbed multiple times. The guy left. The guy came back and then continued and ultimately killed her. So, and all these neighbors, the whole block is like seeing this. They see the guy leave, they don't call. They see the guy come back, they don't call.
I think it's talked about in an episode of Girls. That's how I know it.
But I know now, I remember I saw someone like nicked by a bus, and I remember my first thing was like, you call 911. Like I was like the thing of like
awesome.
Be like very specific of like you, and I called 911 too, but I did the thing of like I'm making you the person who does something, as opposed to us all assuming, especially now because people can't get out their phones to film. It's horrifying,
right? Yeah,
and it's horrifying because sometimes you miss the moment on your phone, and it's
I know it's fucked up. Well, it depends. Like if it's active danger, blah blah blah. I understand some people's rationale of their head of like, is there a crime happening? Like if we get footage, you know what I mean? Like because for instance, I remember I was taking a walk once, and a car, seemingly drunk driver, slammed into a couple of cars and kept driving, and I took out my phone. Not like I'm going to jump in front of the car to stop him, but I took out my phone to try and get his license plate, and I did get his license plate and gave it to the police. So
nice.
Damn, I didn't know you were a cop, piggy boy.
Good job.
Damn, I didn't know you were a fucking rat.
It's bad to even contact the police about that.
Did you tell the police all the things you've said about them when you're drunk?
I didn't call them. There was one like nearby, and
you went. When was this?
No, it was 2016, 2017.
You went in there with your phone. You were like, officers.
No. Other people were calling. A car came by like 2 minutes later. I was still on my walk, and I showed him the thing, and he wrote down the license plate.
That's really interesting.
It was very easy.
Did they give you a NYPD shirt that you could wear places?
Nothing. They probably didn't follow up, knowing them.
Okay, so Steve, I do want to. You did do theater.
Do you
feel like did you fail? Did you pursue your theater dreams, or did you close that chapter on your own?
I think I closed that on my own. So basically my story is like I was a bit of a child actor sort of in like middle school and stuff. I wasn't like a famous child actor. It wasn't like I wasn't in film.
What was the biggest thing you did?
I did a few like plays at this theater called Artist Repertory Theater in Portland. That was it was like a regional theater, like an equity one. So that was like as big as I went. Some equity productions, but like when I started doing like the professional acting in like 6th grade, I just like thought I was famous. Just like my child brain was like I'm famous now.
Yeah,
like
I did that, and I just did middle school theater.
Famous.
I would have been so jealous of you if I was in middle school with you and you were like in professional. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, but I think there needs to be like more psych studies on like child actors, because I think even doing it to like a small degree, it does something to your like psychology a bit.
It makes you happier.
Maybe.
That's what I think.
Maybe it makes you just like amazing and incredible and perfect. But
yeah. I don't know. I'm always very jealous of it. It seems like a nightmare. The reject. I mean, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But it's also, like, it's very tough now.
Oh yeah. No, I'm so glad I'm like not an actor anymore. But like, so basically, when I got to like my teenage years, I stopped getting cast as much essentially, and I was like kind of down on that. And then I transitioned into playwriting. I got really into playwriting, and I did that like
playwriting is always the actor's first stop on the way out of
exactly the first exit.
I did the playwriting too. Haven't we all?
But I liked it because I liked to write, and I got really into it. I think I got like better at writing during it. And when I went to undergrad, when I first got there, I was still kind of had theater in my mind. But like the first class I took was a like psychology class, was an intro psych class. I had already taken AP Psych at high school, and I just loved it. And I think I ultimately, loved it more than theater. And I think I got frustrated with theater over time. I still obviously like love theater, and I'm like a theater fan, but like I don't miss doing it at all. I don't miss like the auditions, like just like how you're like judged instantly based on like all these things. I like how I can currently be like a little bit more detached from my work, a little bit just, I mean, as a researcher, there's always still like the ego involved in your research, and you want to do well, but it's not you. You're not putting like your full self on the stage. There's this other goal, which is like to like generate knowledge and truth, and that's like a kind of a communal activity. And also, even when I do like TikToks and public speaking, it's not about me. It's literally like, this is a psychology study. And then people don't comment on me in the comments. They comment on like the psychology. And like, I like that better.
Do you ever feel like...
You should see Gianmarco. He can get really detached as a performer.
Okay.
It's like basically like...
That's the key.
Yeah. If I'm not the main character in a sketch, I might as well be a chair. I definitely in rehearsal I can be kind of lazy, but I always bring it on stage.
You do always bring it on stage.
I always bring it on stage.
You're saving your energy.
That's what I say. Do you ever feel that your peers don't, in stand-up comedy, if you're like a big on TikTok, as you are, some people might not take you as seriously at the thing that you profess to be because you're partially the communicator to the dumber people.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel like being this path that you're on, where you are the face of it, ever makes it so that like, are there some that are like, oh, that fucking TikTok star? Yeah, I'm doing real studies. I'm putting babies in boxes like a real scientist.
Yeah, no, I definitely feel that. And that's also like very much, I've had a lot of people like warn me that as I go on the academic job market, so essentially as I apply for professor positions, which I'm starting to do, I'm going to do that over the next few years. Because basically being a postdoc, it's like the in-between between having a PhD and being a professor. You kind of, you sit around and you do...
We're out of academia so deeply.
Yeah,
so you got, what was the first degree?
So my first degree was an undergrad.
Okay.
And then I did a PhD in psychology. So yeah, my undergrad in psych at Stanford, and then I went to Cambridge for my PhD, and I just finished that this October. And now I'm...
What was your thesis paper?
So it was about misinformation, basically, and social media. My entire thesis was about like social media, misinformation, what goes viral on social media.
Okay.
Well, so the thesis had a number of studies. I think my biggest paper from my thesis was a study about what goes viral on social media in political contexts. And it was, it essentially found that like if politicians dunked on a member of the opposing party, so if they sort of were negative about the opposing party, they went very viral. And this was essentially like the strongest predictor of virality out of a number of predictors measured. So
if Joe Biden, if one day, whenever Trump's first tweet comes back, which I'm sure is around the corner, if Joe Biden quote tweeted and just said, "Suck my dick," it would go so viral. It would be the most viral tweet of all time. If he said, "Fuck you."
Yeah.
I'm fucking stormy right now.
Yeah.
That would be the most liked tweet in the history of the world.
Yeah.
It would. It makes sense. He has so much potential, but he doesn't.
What would you do?
He doesn't go for the dunking.
You didn't seem to like any of my pitches there. What would you say, Joe Biden? Trump goes back. He goes, "I'm back," and that's it. What's your Biden?
I don't know.
Biden calls you.
Imagine him saying anything. So I was like trying to imagine a real scenario.
If Trump did a big tweet, what if he did like, "Well, now I am sleepy."
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
Some kind of twist on the...
You should be his writer.
Please. That's honestly, I think that's like when comedians disappear sometimes.
Oh my God,
I think that's where they go.
They're ghostwriters for Trump specifically. Yeah. They are good.
So that was your thesis. Tell me, because I'm very pessimistic.
Yeah.
And I imagine.
Yeah, same.
I just, to me, there's no way out of social media. I think these sites have to get so unbearably bad, which maybe they will because of capitalism and how everything gets worse with the ads and the whatever Elon Musk is doing. That I got an ad today for like a join the Christian seminary thing, and I was like, this targeting system is out of whack right now.
They're awful.
It's because I made a priest joke, I think.
Wow. Yeah.
But like all of a sudden I'm like, why the fuck is Jordan Peterson on my timeline?
It's like all sorts of conservative like weird things that I'm seeing.
But I think the only solution is social media has to. It's bad. It's bad. It's a deal with the devil. It's destroying us. It's polarizing us. It makes us have a complete disconnection from reality. And but you can't force these things to go away. So you can only hope that they get so bad that people go, ugh, I just want to watch a TV show instead.
No, I'm pretty pessimistic about social media. I don't see it like changing much anytime soon. You saw Elon Musk go in there and completely like mess with Twitter, and people are still using Twitter. Like no one ever like left it. Like
of course.
Oh my god, remember all those days?
I don't care if it's all Jordan Peterson.
Yeah. There was like those week
I did not make a Mastodon account. Thank you very much.
I hate Mastodon. Was horrible. It's just like the user experience was horrible. Of Mastodon. It was the social media platform that everyone was leaving Twitter for because like everyone people were also going to like
posting over there. No,
I don't even know. The thing with Twitter is it's just like the thing that makes it so god awful is what makes it so fascinating. You're seeing high
people
drama.
live for the drama.
Yeah, high drama.
Yeah.
High quick drama.
Which social media app is the most
best?
If only one could be around, and this is for the health of society,
causing the least amount of harm.
What's the cause? Yes, which social media app causes the least amount of harm
in your professional?
The least amount of harm, probably LinkedIn.
Oh, sure.
LinkedIn's like
doesn't get talked about.
I wouldn't count it. I mean, maybe in your world people use it for that.
No, like we I don't know. We barely use it, but like least amount of harm. It's just like because it has like no effect entirely. Besides, like people
Instagram,
are
Twitter, Facebook.
recruiting.
I think Twitter has done more. You got to balance the good and the bad because some people think Twitter has done great things for citizen journalism.
Yeah, I think it's great for journalists. It's great for niche communities. Like for academics, it's been amazing. It's been really helpful for me to sort of learn like the inside ropes of academia because academic Twitter is great. It's also toxic. So it's like it is really good and really bad. I mean, I do like TikTok. I know everyone's talking about like banning TikTok and everything, and TikTok has a misinformation problem. But I do like that you get to see the full experience of someone like talking. I think that it humanizes someone a bit more.
I just think it moves so fast that like they just revealed they have like a button that they're allowed to use. They say they use it very frequently called the heating, where like they could make a video kind of show up on more phones than it deserves based on the algorithm. They could boost it a little. I would do anything to press that button.
I know. My conspiracy theory is that like I was heated. Like as soon as that article came out, I was like, oh, maybe that happened to me because they said they were doing it partially to like increase the diversity of like content on the feed. So it wasn't just like people like dancing. And part of it, they wanted to increase like the amount of educational creators. And like last November, so basically like a little bit more than a year ago, my account just went from like 70,000 followers to like 900,000 followers.
Jesus
like in a couple weeks basically.
That's
so it was like
crazy.
Yeah, it was so
random.
But
your account is sure.
It was like, and
did you have anything
maybe
in particular there that was like you must have had one
was the
videos that were like, whoa.
Yeah, so one of the videos I had during that time was the smoke-filled room study that you guys were talking about, which was, that was a hit. It got like 5 million or something. I had one on change blindness, which also got 6 million. So I had a string of videos, I guess, that got around like 6 million. So it could have been that I was just producing like content that people liked or something.
It's also like we know what you're going to get when we go to your account. Like I think that it's very like if you like psychology and you're not in you are, but if you just it's an easy follow. I think.
Yeah, and I also I tell people to follow me if they're interested in psychology, so that
Sure.
always like helps a little bit. There are things like that, and I try to like keep my account like one very specific niche so people know what they're getting. Exactly. Like the TikTok. Like, I don't know if you've seen like the TikTok gurus who are like, this is what you do to grow on TikTok. They always say like you have to niche down, so like
that's the problem.
who you're following. Yeah,
that was a big decision when I started this podcast. Was like, do I make it on my account or do I make a podcast account?
Yeah,
and I probably regret. I stuck with one.
You think you should have?
Because I had a bad in the past. I was like, and this is marketing, but it's just like I remember I created a sketch series and I made it like separate from myself, and the social media. I feel like it did not help. I feel like people they want to see you in your thing. I think it's hard to make sketch teams go viral on TikTok because I think it's very much about the individual. Individual experience.
That's why we have.
Okay.
So you're saying just cut Russell out more, just like we can do edited clips of just you speaking.
I mean, that's pretty much what we do. Shut the fuck up! I give you lots of great clips. So you got your PhD. You did it on social media. And then what's after PhD?
Postdoctoral researcher, which like no one knows what that is basically, but it's basically means you're like a full-time researcher who's not quite professor yet. I have an advisor who is a professor who sort of helps me with the research. I'm part of like a research lab, so I work with other like PhD students and everyone at NYU. So it's it's just like the in between stage. And but yeah, I'm also.
What are you doing in that? Are you taking classes? Are you doing research?
Oh, I'm just doing research. I'm continuing to publish mostly on social media. Again, that is kind of like the niche of like what I research basically is
Are you also, do you have, like,
social media, misinformation, polarization, topics like that.
Does that involve a lot of like statistics, I imagine?
Oh,
just
yeah,
numbers,
totally.
Just volumes and interpreting numbers.
Yeah, so some of it is like big data stuff, like you analyze like big data sets of data from Facebook and Twitter, and you do like text analysis. Some of it is conducting experiments as well, either like survey experiments that are just conducted online, as well as like digital field experiments. Like we're currently running, I guess I shouldn't say too many details, but we're currently like running an experiment where we sort of change aspects of people's like social media feed by having them follow and unfollow certain accounts on social media, and then like sort of tracking them over time and seeing like how that might change their experience. So
does it
basically
ever feel
things like that.
Like, does it ever feel like you're? Because the conclusion is going to be social media does affect how you feel. Social media, like
yeah, but the nuances are interesting. I mean, it's not always like intuitive. Like sometimes it is intuitive.
What's an
like
example that it really was counterintuitive?
One is this isn't from my research personally, but like one is that social media seems to have very different impacts in like different countries. Like the impact, like social media and polarization might be like a very unique to the US problem. Like there have been lots of studies in the US showing that, social media seems to increase polarization, and that when you ask people to deactivate, for instance, like their Facebook accounts for a month, their polarization decreases and their well-being increases. So there seem to be benefits.
I'd love to do that like before Thanksgiving meals. Like you have like one group of New York NYU freshmen like deactivate for a month and they go, oh, it's nice. And the other, they go home and they hit their dad.
Yeah.
So what do the other countries show?
Yeah, so there was this really interesting study. It was conducted in Bosnia by another lab at NYU, actually, and I know the people involved. And they essentially found they had people deactivate their Facebook accounts. And it was during a very specific time. It was like during Genocide Remembrance Week in Bosnia. And I don't know the entire like politics of Bosnia and everything, but they essentially found that deactivating Facebook increased ethnic polarization in that country. And they found that this was specifically for people in sort of who had homogenous offline social networks, meaning, they're offline social networks where a lot of people who were like them. And what they found is that like social media exposed them to more people who were different from them, essentially.
Interesting.
Yeah. So like in that specific context, social media might have had positive effects.
And
Weird,
just to be
crazy.
clear, to test their level of polarization, did they take a quiz that was like, was the Holocaust real? Yes or no? And they were like, whoa, they started denying it more. Like ultimately it was a paper questionnaire.
It was like a survey response. Like usually like psychologists measure polarization through these things called like feeling thermometers, saying like, how do you feel about Democrats on a scale of 0 to 100? And and a lot of like people who aren't in like psychology are like, that's silly. Does that mean anything? But
has that been studied though? Like, doesn't it go? I'm sure there was a study. Are feeling thermometers more useful than yes or no?
They are. The thing is, they are very like reliable and valid measurements. Wow. Often like survey measures are more like reliable and valid than like measuring people's behavior, because people's behavior is like so unpredictable and stuff. So psychologists love these like little like strongly disagree to strongly agree, because oftentimes they actually like tell you a lot about people. They predict behavior pretty well. Like
do they ever matter in terms of like, I think some people would be very much like all the way here, all the way there. So in a way, like their number might not be as just because they did a 10 and a 2 doesn't mean that they were more effective than the person that does an 8 and a 4, because that person in relation to their answers just scales it differently.
Yeah, I mean,
so complicated. It's just so many ways to be incorrect. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's like a good point. But oftentimes those differences don't matter when you're just, because these psychology studies just often look at group differences. So you'll look at like 500 people who weren't given some experimental treatment versus 500 people who were, and you'll see these group differences between the group who like deactivated their Facebook and the group who didn't. And once you like average everyone together, you'll see these group differences, and that's how you can sort of make conclusions, basically.
Do you think Facebook generally, it's thought of, Mark Zuckerberg gets blamed for inspiring a Holocaust, basically, and just all sorts of hate stuff over the world.
Yeah.
Do you think he deserves, or Facebook, the entity, deserves more credit because I certainly never saw the Facebook helped people appreciate other cultures. I've never heard a positive thing said about this app. Do you think that we overestimate the negativity?
I think we do a bit, and coming from me, this is maybe a bit surprising, because like I have hated on Facebook a bunch, and I even had Facebook respond to my research before.
What did they? Who was it? Mark on the phone?
No, it was like it was like Andy Stone or some of the like kind of PR communications people at Facebook. So we wrote. So we published a paper. It was the one I was talking about earlier, about how like if like politicians dunk on the opposing party, it goes viral. And then we wrote a Washington Post op-ed about that research, basically talking about the broader implications of like how social media incentive structures are really toxic and might be encouraging people to post divisive content online. The Washington Post picked our headline for us, and the headline they picked was really dramatic. It was like, why Facebook really, really doesn't want to stop extremism on their platform.
That's so funny. That's so funny. The fact that they're allowed to do that. That you write this article and they go, why Mark Zuckerberg can suck Steve's dick. Like, it's just like, so Facebook then
Facebook saw that headline, and they were like,
they know that they know that you didn't come up with the headline, right?
Yes, and so they wrote this long response, and mostly what they were criticizing was the headline. They were like, the article wasn't even about extremism; it was about polarization. And it's like, yeah, but did you read the article? That was the one thing we wrote. We didn't write the headline.
And the truth is, no one read the article; they just read the headline. So that's why they care so much about the headline.
Yeah, and then they kind of cherry picked a lot of research about like. They essentially argued for the rest of it. They were like, Facebook doesn't increase polarization. And then they sort of cherry picked a bunch of research showing sort of the positive sides of Facebook. One of the studies they picked was actually the one I talked about in Bosnia as well. They were like, look, Facebook does some good things in some contexts,
and were
which
they
is
trying
true.
to convince you to write a retraction, or what were they trying to scare you into shutting up about Facebook?
No, I don't think it was for me. It was just for it was their research blog. So I think they essentially wanted to write a response to make themselves look better, but it didn't. It didn't work. It seemed like, I mean, I wrote a response to it on Twitter, and it seemed like no one was on Facebook's side,
especially on a different social media app. That's going to be a tough one.
No.
Yeah. I did not see anyone go like, "Oh, Facebook, you have a point there."
Oh, that's nice. You made one person in Bosnia smile for a day. You know what? That does balance it out.
With Facebook, is Eric, anecdotally, I can just look at how many people I view differently from my time on Facebook. We all have a handful of people that you're like, oh, that person's so weird on that social media app.
Yeah.
Any app, any of this technology.
But isn't
it influences how you think about that person, and then sometimes you then draw.
Is part of Facebook sucking, though, just the fact that that's where more older people are?
But even before that,
is it Facebook's fault? Twitter is pretty bad. I think I like Twitter more because at least, my timeline is skewed, but it is more of a left-leaning.
It is, yeah.
App, but that's not because of Twitter. The current owner is flirting with the far right all the time.
Yeah,
applies to cat turd every day.
Yeah, cat turd.
Yeah, but that's why it's not that I'm like a Mark Zuckerberg apologist.
Yeah, see, I don't even think that. I don't even see any the thing is now I'm like, Facebook for me seems so harmless because I go on every once in a while now, and I'm like, no one's on there. It's truly
it's empty.
People I went to high school with posting their kids' photos. That's all I see on there now. It's not
but it's there. It's you're just not privy. A lot of people are.
I am saying there was a time I'm thinking 2016. There was a time where you went on there and you saw people in your life hyper political, blah blah blah, and I just don't see that kind of thing happening on there anymore.
Sure,
but that's just my own experience. But that's why it feels like a less toxic thing in my point of view than Twitter now, where you're like, well,
Russell, you recently went on TikTok and you sent screenshots from the first 3 videos that popped up.
Okay, I go on TikTok once every few months.
Okay.
Shut up. We're not lying on this podcast.
No, I'm being
once
dead
every
serious.
few months.
Yeah, the only time I go on TikTok is when you or Douglas send me a TikTok to look at.
That's wild.
Okay.
I don't go on there. I have nothing to go on there. But TikTok, they know what I want, and what they show me is.
Okay, so let's see. It's a woman leaning over yoga outfit when your mom didn't want you to have kids at 20 like her.
It's a sexy woman.
Okay.
Next one.
Okay, the next one is another woman in underwear. And she's putting on pants. What's that? What happened in that video?
I don't know. I didn't watch it. I'm just
okay. And then the other one.
No, you can't show it because it's mean. But
it's not mean. It's a picture of a man. It's a picture of a large man with bad teeth.
Yeah. So it's telling me that's what and then the fourth thing was a woman breastfeeding. So
wow. So is this what the algorithm has decided for you? Or are you really new to TikTok? So these are just the first videos
I'm only going
showing you
once. Okay, maybe 3 is 2 once a month probably. I'm going on there.
Okay.
For a video that someone sends me, and I don't do too much scrolling.
We all know TikTok is the most accurate app.
Well, but I'm saying
but if you're really new to TikTok, then it doesn't know you.
To pull from. But I guess
if you don't give it much data, it's not that good. Yeah. Yeah.
I talk about a positive to social media. And maybe it's apocryphal, but I love the idea of people finding out they're gay or bi based on their TikTok. They go that moment of realization is very cool.
Yeah.
Though I think based on my interest, TikTok would be trying to be like, you're gay.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, TikTok. No.
Oh, really?
It's just musical theater.
Has TikTok been showing you, thinking you're gay?
Back in my theater days, I could see it being like, well, you liked 20 Legally Blonde reality show TikToks. So we assumed they found the lead for the show. They did an MTV reality show.
I love that. I watched that with my mom. It was
good. That is a fun concept for shows.
That was
to do
a good show.
Yeah, but didn't
and Legally Blonde good musical.
I I thought like
It was like 10 years ago.
People on Broadway hate it though because I feel like the people who won, they weren't like
she was not as good as like the original lead.
Yeah.
Laura Bell Bundy?
I just remember back in the musical theater bitchy days, there was some long note that she holds, and so someone got a bootleg of her like taking like a big breath in the middle of it, and they're like,
yeah.
what a dumb bitch. She can't hold a note for 30 seconds.
Broadway.
Yeah. And then there was another show where they were casting like the leads for Grease.
Yes, in
like
London.
on TV. Was it London?
I thought that was in London.
I don't remember which.
Maybe not.
And I think the female lead they picked ended up becoming famous or something. Like she became like a Broadway actress after. Like
I did a
pretty good.
masterclass with Catherine McPhee before she was conservative.
Before Smash?
After
she's
Smash.
conservative?
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
Wait, who is
She's
she
married
again?
to someone.
David Foster
She sang
Wallace.
Somewhere
Okay.
Over the
David
Rainbow on American Idol.
Oh, American Idol. Oh, I remember. Yeah.
And it was like an amazing
Yeah, I used to watch
performance.
American Idol. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, those first couple years were so great. Simon got so nice. What the fuck?
Kelly Clarkson, really good.
No, but
Astounding.
But think about psychological experiment. Think about the first.
Thanks for keeping
years
us on track.
of- the first years of American Idol. If you look at some of those old videos of the bad people, it's so fucked up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they were mean.
They were They were getting mentally ill people.
Yeah.
For us to laugh at.
Yeah.
And that was like the beginning of like reality competition kind of things.
What do you think Real Housewives is, Russell? What do you think of the
Okay,
things that
listen.
you enjoy now
Listen,
are?
I agree. They're taking advantage of people.
I remember when reality TV wasn't ethical.
No.
Oh, what a horrible time that was. MILF Island,
At least they were paying Real Housewives. At least they get paid, rather than like and at least in our minds, we're able to do it because they have some sort of money, some sort of thing. We're able to rationalize a bit more than like a poor person coming in who we're all just laughing at because they're
And it's not only are we embarrassing them, they suck.
yeah, no, it's
Yeah.
like, we're laughing at it,
Sure, but it was the self-indignant ones that were the most glorious. The ones who were
No,
like,
I know.
Did you see this thing, MILF Island? I need to watch it.
No, I haven't
I've
seen
never
it.
heard of MILF Island.
Oh, so it's this new show where it's like
Okay.
these moms are trying to find love, but
Yeah.
they're with each other's sons.
Oh, no, I've seen an ad for it.
And there was something where they blindfolded the moms.
Very Freudian.
The moms
Very
had to-
Freudian.
Yeah.
The moms had to touch them, right?
The moms had to figure out which one was their son based on feeling their naked upper body. And I was like, oh my God, how is
Yeah.
this allowed on TV?
Yeah.
Wow.
And
Okay.
there's something, sometimes I would like pair psychologists with reality TV and make like a reel where you, because these studies are fascinating to watch.
Okay, but remember that one reality too, where everyone was an actor except the Joe Schmo show or whatever. Everyone was an actor.
A Truman Show like thing.
He thought it was almost like the Truman Show. He thought he was doing like a house with everyone, like Big Brother type situation, but it was like everyone was an actor except him. So like the Truman Show, which is so fucked up. Kristen Wiig was before SNL. It was one of her first she was one of the actors on the show. But like
did any of them fuck him?
I don't think so.
Because that would make the show most
But
exciting. You got to film that one in Russia.
man.
Okay, so you're it's postdoctoral. What's your dream? You want to be a professor? You want to tour?
Yeah, so I do want to be a professor. Yeah, like that's my number one thing besides the science communication, which I love. Like I'm trying to emphasize on all my job applications that like look psychology research or being a professor. That's my number one thing. Ideally, I would also like continue to do because I love the public speaking. I love the TikToks. I love science communication. I do want to write like a book, like a popular science book. So I definitely want to do all the science communication stuff because I love that. But yeah, my number one, I do actually love doing research and I like teaching as well. So I do want to be a professor. Yeah.
To bring it to Valentine's Day. First of
Thankfully.
all, what are you getting Nicole? What did you get Nicole today?
Today, on Valentine's Day, we have a date night planned.
Okay. I got my beautiful girlfriend, Tova Silverman, a free ticket to see Gianmarco Soresi headline
Where?
Levity Live in West Nyack.
What a
I
thoughtful
can't
gift.
think of. You know what? You picked the perfect spot to say because if it had been out of town, I'm like, oh, nice to get out of town, blah, blah. But you pick somewhere just far enough away that it's so fucking annoying that she has to go to that. Like, not in the city either, where you can do something after. No, West Nyack. So it's a hassle.
Oh, I'm going to take her to the food court after.
Romantic. Does she see a lot of your performances and stuff, or does she?
Yeah.
How could she not?
Okay.
Yeah.
Does she
plenty.
get tired of them, or does she like love it? Like,
I'm sure. I think she. I was gonna give a joking answer, but I'll give a real one. I think like it's fun sometimes when I'm doing well.
yeah.
She knows if she goes to see me and I don't do well,
not gonna be a
that the
fun
night
night.
is over.
Yeah.
That the night
I
that I'm gonna want to
see.
listen to my set
Yeah.
right after, even if we're at dinner.
Oh, yeah.
And with one earphone in, and I'm gonna say like, okay, do you think this would work instead? So I think it's probably like stressful.
Yeah.
I feel the same
Depending
way.
on the
I feel
circumstance.
the same way of like, yeah, I've seen you a lot. I think
Chris, the reason I had a tough weekend, I did a set for this thing called Don't Tell.
Oh, yeah.
Which they film, and it's a very good channel. And I just try not to put too much weight on it. I just said to myself, if I do well, I'll never have to worry about selling tickets again. And it was just fine. It was just fine. And I had one joke that like just did not work at all. And I had a meltdown, and our friend Chris was there.
Oh, man.
And at some point he said to me, he said, you want to go listen to your set, don't you? Go do it. Go do
Where-
it.
this was in
reconvene.
LA?
This was in LA.
I didn't
and
know
then
you were
and then
in
in the
LA.
morning, I went to the Delta Lounge. I couldn't sleep all night. I was so verklempt. And I was in the Delta Lounge, and I called Tova, and I cried in the Delta Lounge. And Henry Winkler was sitting there, and he looked like really like charming. Like he looked like camera ready. He looked good. This like cool green pants. And I had this fantasy in that moment that Henry Winkler would see me crying, and he'd come over and he'd say, "Artist," and I go,
And he just ignored you.
and he'd say, "Talk to me, buddy," and we would have a moment. And I thought that would be so nice.
Did that make you cry
And then
more?
he'd tell me a story. And then he'd tell me a story like, I remember one time I failed, and then he'd say, "I can see that you're talented." But instead, I just talked to Tova and I cried.
Elaborate.
Oh wow!
And-
You need to write that into your Netflix show.
I should
Yeah.
Get Henry. But I had a meltdown. So to answer your question, no, I don't think Tova enjoys watching me at all.
That sounds awful. I
She
feel
likes it sometimes, and
But
sometimes
it's
she gets-
exciting. It's exciting to see, you know, because you're like, most of the time you've seen the material, you know the material, but it's exciting to see different groups respond. You know, where you're like,
Yes.
that's what I imagine as a loved one. She takes away to probably a
Yeah.
greater degree
Sure.
than me.
Like, I'm sure when Nicole sees your show, she goes, how does this completely different group of older gay men respond to the show as opposed to the previous one? Very interesting dynamics here.
There's some young gay people there too.
I'm so lucky to have Tova watch because she is she's a genius comedian. She works as a manager, but I say that she really is a comedian, and her input is invaluable to me. So I'm very lucky.
That's cool.
And I hope she enjoys it sometimes. What are you bringing? Is there any chance you're bringing your boyfriend to West Nyack to see me?
Is this so? You have a performance on Valentine's Day?
Yeah, it's a big stand-up comedy day.
Okay.
Because I think like
Maybe. I mean,
Oh,
I said I
I
wanted to
would feel
see
so
you.
guilty if you came.
What is West Nyack like?
it's just a mall. No, please. I feel
Okay.
ashamed that I even made it. Don't.
Yeah,
Don't.
well,
Listen.
I was thinking of seeing one of your shows.
Stop. Don't worry.
We were talking about I might bring my friends to your Sunday show or something,
Oh,
or
that's good.
one of
The
your
Sunday
New York
one's good.
shows. Yeah, no, I really want to see. I've seen a few of your sets
thank you.
online, like your what's the James Corden? Yeah, I saw that
sure.
set and some of your TikToks. And
I thought you were coming up with an adjective, and you were like
jokes
"your," and I was like "funny, charismatic, talented."
incredible, talented.
Your boyfriend
Never be
is a
topped.
psychologist as well.
He is, yeah. So he's a PhD right now. He's at Princeton. So yeah, he's in psychology. He's also a TikToker as well. His handle is Danny's Brain, and he's a big educational TikToker as well. So we're both like educational TikTokers. We started together during the pandemic. This was like during like 2020, fall of 2020, and he is the one who actually sort of inspired me to do an educational TikTok because I had this TikTok that was just like kind of a fun account basically where I was just like posting random stuff and I had like 500 followers. It was just like nothing. I was just like playing around with the app, and then he was like, "Oh, I'll try TikTok," but he's into both like linguistics and psychology stuff. So we started doing like content about like linguistics, and
Sure.
he started taking off. So he took off first, and then I was like, oh, I'll try this, and then I started doing some videos, and then I started taking off. So it's something we do like kind of.
Did you feel like whoever had the most followers became the dominant one in the relationship?
I mean, it's definitely like a point of like contention a bit, but I mean, we deal with it. But it's a little bit. I mean, he started with more followers, and then I surpassed that because I had that random blip last November. But yeah, no, we manage it. It's nice that we are in like similar fields, like that we both research psychology, and that we both are like psychology TikTokers.
I know there was a psychological study that was do moral philosophers behave more morally?
Oh, I love this
and
one.
my question is, do psychology boyfriends behave less irrationally?
I think the answer is no.
That seems to be the thing. Knowledge doesn't change.
No, I don't think I've seen any like psychologists who seem to behave less irrationally. There's this psychologist, Paul Bloom, who's like I'm a huge fan of, and he is often asked like, has psychology impacted the way you live your life at all? Are there any psychology findings you like take to heart and change your behavior or like change how you parent? Because he's like a dad, and he was like, no, like basically not. Because it's funny, like a lot of these psychology findings don't come away with like advice or anything. Yeah. They say that like this group behaves differently when we do this to this group, which is why like it was nice that you like took something out of the bystander study that you could apply to real life.
Yeah, it was sticky. It was just sticky.
Because like I have trouble coming up with examples where like psychology has influenced like how I behave in real life, but also like the fact that I've been doing this for like 10 years or however long I've been doing it. Maybe like it's so ingrained in me that I don't know how it's shaping my behavior, but like I can't think of like concrete ways in which like, oh, I'm going to apply this psychology finding to
your
to real
study
life.
made me think, oh, I'm going to be more negative on Twitter to go viral.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, I think some of that research has maybe influenced how I behave on because like on TikTok, sometimes you're like, should I like lean into the controversy a little bit? You never want to do that too much. You never want to lean into like the sort of the bad incentives and become like, a polarizing mess of things. But sometimes you're like, how can I have like a hook that like is like a little bit.
I have a book pitch. Take it, please. If I ever had a baby, I would want to do some of these the nice psychology experiments. Like there was one that you showed of a baby crawling across a clear glass, essentially. Yeah. And if the parent made like a face, the baby would like not do it. And if they made like the baby did it backwards, it was very cute. I think as my child got older, I would want to like do the thing of like, ooh, I wonder if they can. I remember this study. I've talked about it on here before. I love it. Where they knocked something off a shelf, but there was a rod, so like gravity did not play out, and like the baby doesn't register it. It's nothing to the baby. But then one day they do it. The baby's old enough that they go, what? Because they understood that the ball should have fallen.
Right.
And I would love like a book of like, try this around this age and see when it changes.
Ooh, that's a
like
good
a little
one.
like fun baby psychology. People would say it's unethical. Like put your baby in a box for 3 years and see like, are they scared of you?
No, but that's good because like when I was in undergrad, like I took a few developmental psychology classes, and the professors would like bring in their like 4-year-old kid and be like, we're going to try some psychology experiments on my kid. And they would do like live demonstrations for us, basically.
What kind of thing?
Yeah. Let's see. I forgot what they were at that age, 4 years old.
This is why I want you to have a kid.
Oh, I think it was like conservation. So I think kids at whatever age, I mean, this was many years ago, I think they didn't realize that like when like water is in a tall glass, they think it's like more water than when it's in like a shallow bowl. So basically if you like pour like water from the shallow bowl into the tall glass, you're like, is there like more water now? And they're like, oh yeah, there's like more water. So they don't know that there's the same amount of water. They think it's like more.
That's
so it's things like that.
I would love if I had a kid. Like, that feels like no one would get mad. I'd love to have the kid where, like, the one day where I do it on video, and I would film it.
Yeah.
And maybe he'd be like, there's more water. And then the one day that he, like, kind of knows.
Yeah.
And I would do it every morning so I could find it. I could find the one day where he goes, I think it's more. And I'm like, oh, my God, he's almost there.
You'd go super viral. Make a new account for this.
Listen, if I ever had a kid, SAG-AFTRA would have to interfere because I am turning that baby into more content than you can imagine.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I already got the baby cam on him. Why not hit record? Make compilations. Mm-hmm. I interrupted you earlier. Did you remember what you wanted to say?
I don't.
I worry about this. I think I worry about this couch that it's too cozy.
Too comfy.
So I did Pete Holmes.
Oh, I do. I was gonna say, just about you had mentioned earlier, or you had asked about like colleges in terms of hiring TikTok.
Yeah.
I feel like I would rather hire a famous person. Like, I would rather hire a TikTok psychology person because I'm like, they want money too, those colleges. You know what I mean? It's a thing a selling point, I feel like. That's all I was going to say. I feel like you should not be afraid of it because you're like, they can market that and it doesn't take away any.
But it's also dangerous because they know, like, God forbid you go on TikTok one day and you go, like, you say anything controversial and then they got to deal with the fucking headache of like you getting dragged, and then Fox News goes, Harvard sucks. What was that? Do you remember? There was a recent like psychologist who it was something about pedophilia that they had like a book, and they got like in big trouble.
Vaguely, I think I saw some Twitter stuff about it.
I think whenever people, and this is what sometimes I think the problem with science communication, the struggle of it is like, let's just say I can imagine that it was related to like the lack of free will, that people have inclinations.
Yeah.
And I think like even for a psychologist to admit, I mean, my R. Kelly joke was basically about these psychological terms are not used because collectively people just go, no, you're a pedophile. Yeah. Like it's a psychology joke.
Yeah.
So I could see why it would also be dangerous to hire like a famous.
Yeah.
I don't know how colleges prize fame.
Yeah. I mean, so the thing is, I've been like encouraged to not emphasize the science communication part. Like, of course, like I mentioned it in my like job application, but like the people who would be like hiring me for a professorship position would be essentially other professors. It wouldn't be like the college administrators and stuff. It would be other professors, and oftentimes they're like more senior professors, and sometimes the more senior professors are skeptical of those who popularize science. And I mean, sometimes those who do popularize science do dumb it down, or they go, Jordan Peterson, they go off the deep end. He was a psych professor at Toronto.
Was he ever respected, or was he always a weirdo?
So my current advisor, Professor Jay Von Bavel at NYU, he was at Toronto when Jordan Peterson was there, and he says that like Jordan was like really respected when he was there. Like, he taught classes that people really liked. And if you look at some of his original like YouTube videos where he's just teaching classes, he actually seems like a good teacher. He seems compelling. But of course that's kind of gone out the window recently as he's become like more like partisan and just like anti-climate
that's
change.
The thing about like becoming a figure where, and I don't even know what he earlier professed. I barely know what he, but like now it's beyond corrupt in the sense of like, it has to, the Sports Illustrated cover, I gotta weigh in on that. It becomes so, someone told me, a comedian told me the version for stand-up comics who do it, because part of it is like, sometimes we record this in advance, and it's like sometimes I'm like, I got to get it in the moment so we can weigh in on the cultural things because the algorithm supports it. But on the other hand, it's like, but then it's garbage.
Yeah.
You wanted to hear like when the Chris Rock got slapped. Like,
also, there's no way. Like by the time you're even sitting down to record, almost every sort of take or thing has already been.
And you have to have a take.
Do you know what I mean?
Sometimes you're just like.
That's the annoying thing. You have to have a take.
I don't care.
Most of the time, 95% of the time, I'm like, I don't care enough about this. I'm fooling myself into caring because it's easy to get riled up. You see people having these impassioned takes on either end of the thing, and you're like, ultimately, you're like, do I actually care about this sort of TV show or this thing? No, I don't.
Do you ever wish that you could do like? Does it ever feel like social media research is more boring than putting a baby on a glass sheet and seeing if they walk across? Like, that seems like a more fun day to me than numbers, test. Like, sometimes it feels like the same way that Freud got to like kind of talk about everything in big sweeping artistic statements because it was so new. Yeah. That like now Freud would talk about everything. Now you got a psychologist who's like, I specialize in children who lost their moms at 2. And it's like it becomes so specific. You don't get to do these kind of like big sweeping theses.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so personally, I do actually love it. I love I like the stats. I like the coding. I like the data analysis. And I do like the social media research. And you do kind of have to specialize as a like psychology researcher. Like it's just this implicit rule of the field. I don't know like why you have to, but it's also like, you know, you have to become an expert on something. It's really hard to be an expert on multiple things and keep up with the literature and everything. So you kind of have to be an expert in one thing. But like, I like being an expert in the social media stuff just because I am interested in social media and what it's doing to our world. And I am also very active on social media, both sort of as a consumer and as a creator and stuff. So I like that. I think that actually sounds more fun than running in-person participants. That's actually like takes forever. And like now with...
I just want to be with babies, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to experiment with babies.
But in your TV show, when you write yourself as a psychologist, you will be like you will make yourself a baby researcher.
It's gotta be
who
because
is
the
like,
other thing is not as baby. Oh,
Yeah.
I think if I'm being honest,
psychologist.
I think this is a thing I will put in the show.
Just so you know, you're gonna hate this. I have to leave in 10 minutes.
Oh my God!
I know. I have sound check at 6:15. I just realized, and I was 15
It's
minutes
gonna
late.
work.
I know. I'm just telling you.
It's gonna work. Let me
The
call
sound?
Titanic. Call Titanic.
just trust it.
It's
Like,
Broadway to the degree.
But it'll still be because it's longer if I.
Yeah, okay, I understand. Okay, then let me we'll close it out. We don't have to rush. Okay, Valentine's Day. We're talking about love. Mm-hmm. I want to do astrology, but let's get there naturally. Mm-hmm. Any great studies about love, romance, couples?
So let me do one of the most, this is a famous psychology study. I've talked about it in one of my TikToks, but I do like this one. It's on something, it's called misattribution of arousal. So it's a very, they did this study on a scary bridge. So one group of and this was done like back in the, 70s or something. It's an old study, but I think the general premises behind it tend to replicate. So they had like one group, and these were heterosexual participants, like heterosexual men go across either a scary bridge or a that was like really steep and rickety, or a sort of not so scary bridge, like one really low to the ground. And then they sort of like had the experimenter was sort of an attractive woman, and she said to the men either on the scary bridge or the low to the ground bridge, she's like, here's my phone number, call me if you have any questions about the experiment. And apparently, according to the study, the men on the scary bridge, they were more likely to call the experimenter after the experiment. And the reasoning behind this is essentially that we misattribute our arousal. So they were feeling arousal or sort of like, adrenaline in their body from the scariness of the bridge. And they interpreted this feeling of arousal as being like, oh, I'm attracted to this woman, essentially. So, I mean, this can be in everyday things. Like if you're on a roller coaster or if you're having a cup of coffee or something and it makes you like feel sort of jittery in your body, you might misinterpret that as
horniness.
Is that why people go on dates to scary movies?
No, I think that might be part of it. And also coffee dates as well. Coffee dates is like because like the coffee makes you jittery and everything. And this is also just kind of a general premise in psychology, is sometimes like we come up with like rationalizations of like feelings that we have in our body, like, oh, I'm feeling this because of this. That's called like attribution, essentially. And oftentimes our attributions of feelings in our body might be wrong. And this is
could there be anything connected to like, oh God, I almost died, what have I done in my life? I need to find a partner. Like, you know what I mean? Like, is there anything there?
You said she was
maybe it's existential. Yeah,
she was attractive too. Like that was part of the.
Yeah,
that feels stressful.
was.
Like, what if the experimenter was like, oh, and I'll play the attractive woman, and they go like,
okay, yeah.
okay, we're gonna throw these results out. I think
You'd have auditions.
You'd have auditions, sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you also I could see calling.
It's really funny to imagine like the researcher like being like so clearly not a researcher, just like hi, like it was like a really.
Hi, I'm a Harvard psychologist. Oh yeah, you're gonna go across the bridge? Oh, that's hot.
That's a Russell character. Okay. So I could also see like they called and did they take into account like did they hit on her, or I would have called and been like, how dare you do that to me today? That bridge was so fucking scary.
Yeah.
I screamed, please delete that recording. Like I could see, to his point, there could be other motivations behind that. And my question is, did the study test at all if it lasted? Or like did it imprint on you at all that forever you misattributed, or did you just misattribute for 12 hours?
But I think it's like we always misattribute. You know, I don't know. Yeah.
Every time I hear a psychology test, I'm like, you could take that test 1,000 different directions. Like you could a week later see if they ran into her, if they were flirtatious.
Yeah.
You could see a month later, a year later. How long does it last? There's so much.
No, totally. And I mean, there are budgetary and time constraints, of course. But like, yeah, and I guess I don't know the answer to those questions, except, I guess just the general principle of we misattribute things in our body. Like, even if we're like, hungry or something.
Like, did they follow up? Did they like see if like a roller coaster operator got more pussy than he should have given? Like, he's always there all the time. I would do that.
But he's
like,
not riding
like
it.
whenever people got off roller coasters, I do a study like a roller coaster that went upside down versus one that just went up and down. That at the end, when people got off, it'd say, just so you know, there's a free room here. Would you like to borrow it for an hour?
You could just listen.
That's a great study.
You could just do.
I could get funding for that.
You need to be a psych researcher.
People that went on a roller coaster versus people that didn't go on a roller coaster, and then find out who got some in the next 24 hours.
Sure. There's a million. And like, now tell me this. Like, it feels like both those examples.
Yeah.
You could do them. That's not any crazier than what they did. A scary bridge. That's just an idea someone had.
Yeah, I will say, so psychology studies like in the 60s and 70s, like way more fun. They were way more wild. Like a study like that probably wouldn't be done anymore, except to maybe replicate that initial study. Like the studies now are a bit more boring or careful,
more controlled, more controlled.
Yeah, and they're usually better science. Like think of like the Stanford prison experiment or some of those like crazy studies that they did in like the 70s and the 60s and stuff. Were just
in a way, this co-hosting relationship is kind of like the Stanford prison experiment. What's the most unethical study that's ever been done in America, I guess?
Yeah, so I did a video on the top 5 most unethical psychology studies. I mean, the Stanford prison experiment has to be one of them. That was in my top 5.
What was the worst thing that happened? They were just mean, or did they hit them? Did the fake fake guards?
No, it was unethical for like a number of reasons. So it was done at Stanford, actually, where I took my Stanford intro psych class. There's like a plaque there because we took the class in the basement. So it was done in that exact basement where I took my intro psych class by this guy, Philip Zimbardo, who, he basically wanted to show that people could become evil based on like the roles that they were assigned. So he got a bunch of like college age like men together and put them in a basement and said, we're gonna like simulate a prison. Half of you will be prisoners and half of you will be prison guards.
He knew to make it all men, at least to not make it like a co-ed jail.
Right. And there were follow-up studies that show that people who respond to an advertisement that says like come to a prison simulation, they tend to be a bit more on the aggressive side.
Come be a cop.
But
what's gonna happen?
Yeah.
They show that people who want to
be cops,
have guns on their waist, tend to be a little more violent.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, but okay, so one of the actually most unethical things about this study is that So it later came out because there were recordings from this experiment that were like unearthed later, showing that. So what Philip Zimbardo said happened in the experiment, which wasn't really the truth, is that just spontaneously, because of the roles they were assigned, these prison guards started sort of like acting like abusive and kind of torturing the prisoners in these prison simulation, and they had to shut down the experiment. It got so bad. But later, these recordings showed that Philip Zimbardo was essentially coaching the prison guards to act this way. Like he wanted this result from the experiment.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. Yeah, it was basically, it was kind of a commentary on him. It wasn't like a commentary on the social roles.
Was it very mendacious? He knew exactly what he was doing, or do you think it was subconscious? Like, go over there, make sure they're in line. Make sure they're in, and he like what do you?
I don't know. I think that's debatable.
Is he still alive?
He is still. I would see him around Stanford occasionally. He's like he's a retired professor.
Is he ashamed? Yeah, is there shame around his name now?
He has a little mustache. A bit. People view him a little bit as like a kind of sketchy character, I think. I mean, he's done some of the most famous studies out there, but I think he has kind of a reputation from the prison experiment.
Sure.
And maybe other things as well. Again,
what's the
creepy
thing? Books have been written.
Yeah.
Like policies have been made off the
it was one of the most
experiment.
influential like experiments of all time, and a lot of it wasn't real, I guess.
Do you ever feel cynical about your whole profession, that it is so tainted that it has to be useful? Like, for example, not to go back to just maybe the bystander effect was the only effective study ever made, but like that's obviously useful. There's kernels of something in all of this, but it's filled with that study, the thing we talked about earlier about the 30% being or whatever being replicable.
Yeah. So the thing is, there is like really, really good research being done. So one thing is like in the past 10 years, research practices have improved a lot. And now there are really high standards in psychology, social psychology, almost more than in other fields, just to have high-powered samples and really like rigorous statistics and everything. Do you have to go?
I'm so sorry.
Okay, yeah.
I'm so sorry.
No worries.
So
yeah,
sorry.
no.
All right. Just get free tickets to
enjoy
Titanic.
your Sandra. I would love to see Titanic, but I can also. Pay
They give
for
Russell
it.
unlimited tickets.
I've heard such good things about it. Like people have said amazing things. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, he came into the show later. So okay. See you.
Yeah.
So I just wonder if you ever feel like any kind of, or whether like I don't know in science whether you're allowed, whether if you say you're a scientist next to a physicist, they roll their eyes.
Yeah, so I went to a physics conference over the past so I was there Wednesday through Friday, and I spoke to these physicists about psychology basically and science communication on a panel, and they seemed to have a lot of respect for psychology, and they seemed to think what I was doing was cool, which I wasn't necessarily used to, but I think physicists are actually like really cool, quirky people. That was my impression from the conference.
Do the fields really have like a physicists are like this, geologists are like this, like are there
Maybe.
overarching things that you like physicists are quirky?
Yeah, so I've heard a lot of social scientists talk about how like psychology sometimes has physics envy. Like psychology has tried to make itself a really empirical science, and I think it has done that to sort of imitate other sciences basically and try to become really falsifiable, have these theories, use like sort of advanced statistics and stuff, but that's of course hard to do with behavioral data. So I've heard that. In terms of stereotypes of the field, I don't know, I see that a bit, but I don't know, again, often my stereotypes are wrong. The physicists turned out to be different than what I expected them to be. So,
I know we'll let's touch on astrology because
okay, yes, I'm ready.
I find it very frustrating.
Yeah.
We had at one point we had someone who said they were a psychic on the show, and I'm very but like Russell,
wow.
This is where I was bummed to lose Russell, where like he's not going to say he believes it, but he's moved by it. Whereas opposed to me, I went through my phases. I read my, what's his name? Michael Sherman? Was he?
He's like the skeptic.
He's
guy.
like he was. First there's the Amazing Randy.
Yeah.
There's that old like atheist crew, and then there's like Michael Sherman would like go to war with Deepak Chopra, and they'd have things about quantum mechanics. But astrology I find particularly bad because partially it's part of my liberal world that like it's and there's a comedian named Jeffrey Asmus.
It's really trendy, yeah.
Yeah, there's a comedian named Jeffrey Asmus. He had a tweet once about like you can't get mad at others for not believing in global warming if you believe in astrology. And I think like that's totally fair.
Yeah.
And I think you're never going to make everyone scientists.
Yeah.
But with the vaccine, we certainly witnessed a like something's wrong in science education.
Oh, yeah.
And it's hard to know what healthy skepticism is. I mean, I admittedly did very little research of the vaccine. I just generally go, if the scientific community generally accepts this and the people telling me to get it also got it, we're fine.
But that's fair to trust the consensus. You can't go out there and do your own research, and you shouldn't
Sure.
either. Like,
sure,
yeah.
And yeah, but so I hate astrology. I find it. It just interjects itself. It's become almost cliche for a man to like be like astrology's stupid. And I'm not saying it's just men and women.
Oh yeah.
What are your and I also have the thing of I'm sorry, I know I'm railing, but like the Huffington Post, the horoscopes are in the women's voices section, and like to me that should be a cause of offense.
Yeah.
But talk to me about astrology.
So I have kind of complex opinions on astrology, actually. First of all, so astrology's fake. Just
Sure.
And I've done a lot of like videos on my TikTok, sort of like debunking astrology.
People get mad.
And people do get mad, but and I think that's made me more frustrated with astrology recently, because back I think early college I was actually kind of into astrology, but I was never into it in a way where I like thought it was true. I was like, this is fake, but it's kind of fun to talk about like being an Aries.
I don't understand that.
Like,
I've heard it. I'm not saying like I understand it, but I
Yeah.
don't understand it because I'm like, go do anything else.
Yeah.
You're mingling with people who do believe it, and that's weird to me.
Yeah, but I don't know. I wasn't really. I feel like a lot of like when I talked about it with my friends back then, it was more ironic, but I think like, yeah, sometimes when I talk to like more of Gen Z, I see like this sincere belief in astrology. And yeah, I have gotten a lot of, I will say the astrology folks and then the manifestation folks, when I debunk.
My girlfriend.
Is your girlfriend into manifestation?
Yeah. Again, it's that world.
Yeah.
Where I think if you put her in a courtroom, she'd go, no, but I think believing in it influences the decisions you make so that you really seek out that thing. I think what she really believes in is articulation of what you want.
Yeah.
But she calls it manifestation. And will like kind of jokingly, in a way where she might say she doesn't believe it, but I would argue, but you kind of do believe it.
Yeah.
Something in you. Again, but what's a belief?
Yeah.
But I yes.
Yeah. Oh, I have things to say about manifestation too, because there are studies on how if you simply, like if you manifest being rich, just simply like thinking of your goal and what it's going to be like if you achieve it, like studies show that doesn't help anything. What does help is if you think of your goal and then you think of your obstacles to achieving it, if you think of an active plan, that stuff works. So if you say that manifestation is like a placebo effect that works, it really isn't in the way that people are currently doing it. If you are actively thinking about obstacles and how you can overcome them to reach your goals, then that's better, but not just the manifestation. So yeah,
it's interesting. Your frustration with that seems higher than your frustration with that seems like my frustration with astrology.
Maybe it's because I think astrology is kind of fun, and it's also part of like the queer community a little bit and like gay culture.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that it's both like sort of the women's voices thing and like gay culture is like
Is there
astrology.
any reason behind that?
And
You think there's any?
I
read
think
once
that it's like something that's alternative from a mainstream point of view.
I read
don't
something
really know
about
why, but
with
yeah.
the higher percentage of women, and I don't know if this was debunked, but it was the idea that in a patriarchal society, when you have less autonomy available to you, you look towards outside things that influence your behavior.
Okay.
And I guess one could say that about the queer community in a what would you call homophobic society that
maybe.
you would be that maybe that's why it latched on.
Yeah, I mean, and there is a study that shows that people go to like psychics and astrologists in times when they are like suffering in life. So there is something like if you feel uncertainty in life, you will go to something that makes you feel more uncertain. But yeah, I don't know why it's become part of. I mean, maybe that theory is true. But I don't know. It's hard to test.
I know that I read that it was a study that said that, and that's why it's. I know that it's a higher percentage of women than men in America at some point.
But my experience when I've debunked manifestation astrology on TikTok, those communities have come after me in sort of a very frustrating way. And yeah, no, I've also been called like a white man for talking about like how like manifestation and astrology is fake. And
it's so hard because there's a part of me that I'm like, okay, but it is fake though.
Yeah. And, what I don't like is when it's so sincerely believed in this dogmatic way to the point where you are not going to accept like actual forms of like legitimate science. Like when you become anti-science because you believe in these things, like that is what frustrates me. I think there's a way to do it in like a fun way, but once you start believing in this stuff at the expense of science, then that is really frustrating. And what I've seen is some of these communities on TikTok, the astrology and manifestation folks, they've been some of the more dogmatic communities I've interacted with. So,
but I think my argument is that, and again, I'm not saying you're disagreeing entirely, but I'm like, you can't live in a world where people kind of believe in a fun way in something. You will always have people who sincerely, but I'm saying like astrology, there's always gonna be a huge swath that actually believe it. Yeah. And it's going to affect the way. Yeah. I mean, it's like, it all ties together with misinformation and social media where like psychology almost becomes useless because anyone can undermine it at any point. And science and communication of science, like the news promoting the study about red wine being good for you, or this, that, and the other, has sensationalized it, and it's not turning back anytime soon. Yeah. That why would anyone believe anything a scientist says anymore? Because they've been lied to in so many different ways. I think that's like there is a part of me that understands why a government mass rolling out a vaccine would stress someone out, given that you hear the government lied in all these different other instances, and it's the same with psychology. But the bottom line is like, I see astrology as bad because it's an avenue for irrational people to have a system where they can be reinforced by other people who have that irrational belief and then ultimately believe in something that isn't real. And they use it to dictate their lives. Ronald Reagan's wife, Nancy?
Yeah, Nancy Reagan.
She had an astrologist that Ronald would listen to and
would influence
even if he
political
didn't fully
decisions.
believe in it, it might have decided his nuclear plan.
Yeah.
So to me, that stuff is bad.
Yeah,
I'd rather have everyone have their own individual irrationalities than a collective one.
I see.
Where they're able to reinforce each other.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I like half by what you say. Because, I think the hardcore belief in it is bad. I think a little bit of, but like, because I think we can have like half beliefs essentially. Like, a lot of people report believing in some kind of superstition. I don't know if you have superstitions around like performances, like when you go on stage. Them. Okay, yeah. I mean, I try to fight them too.
If I see the number 13 or whatever, sometimes I'm like, I want to avoid it. I'm like, no, do it. Yeah. It is not anything.
Yeah. No, I try to fight it too. I think it's, and the more I've been in science, I think the more I've tried to fight it. But I think it's a natural thing, especially when you're in a place of anxiety, or if you just like want to have fun a bit, to be superstitious. And I also think with the decline of like religion or things in society, that people are often turning to things that aren't religion, but instead are like TikTok witchcraft or astrology or manifestation. It's kind of replacing that impulse. I think a lot of us have that impulse. Yeah,
also I think other things that are maybe worse.
Other political conspiracy theories, things like that. I think people many, I don't think everyone has this religious or spiritual impulse, but many do. And ideally, you find an outlet for it that isn't.
Are you an atheist?
I am an atheist, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Are you?
No, I think I'm there's a term called a fideist. Martin Gardner.
Yeah.
Martin Gardner, who was like part of that big skeptic movement, he said, I believe in God because it feels good to do so.
Oh, yeah,
and then the challenge would be like, so you don't believe in God? And he said, no, I do. Like, I don't know if I'm that. I have flowery views about consciousness being a panpsychist. I like panpsychism.
Oh yeah, panpsychism is becoming like popular among like philosophers and even like neuroscientists. Like so for some reason,
for panpsychism, it's kind of the idea that everything is conscious, but like not to get carried away. It's like it's not saying that like an atom's like, hi, my name's Adam.
Yeah.
It's saying that like consciousness, like dimension or volume or weight or whatever is a fundamental thing of the universe, and it's been so long. But the idea is that some people think consciousness is an epiphenomenon, right?
Yeah,
where
it's like accidental, basically.
It's accidental, and it comes out of the brain. But then there's other people who go like, well, that doesn't make any sense. How does non-consciousness become consciousness? It must be actually part of the whole thing.
Yeah.
And it can be like, you know, then there's the argument. It's called the combination. I really do. I miss some of the stuff.
You're like really into this. Like
the combination problem is the idea of, okay, let's say every atom has a degree of consciousness, or you might call it proto-consciousness. How do they all combine to make one I am? How does a brain combine to make one thing? But
I was like really into this in college. I would write a lot of research papers on it and take classes. And yeah, one of the big theories at that time was like integrated information theory. It was one of the panpsychist theories. Basically, the idea was like when information essentially becomes integrated and combined and interacts with each other in a very complex way, it becomes conscious. So like they thought that, you know, that's why like the brain was conscious, because it's this very complex system of integrated information. It had all these paradoxes though, like could the internet become conscious because it's like this integrated information. That was really popular. I'm not sure if that one's still as popular, but people were leaning very into like neuroscientists and stuff were leaning into these panpsychist theories.
And in there, I find it's obviously I try to be optimistic about it. That's the faith part where I like try to be like, but I think in there I'm like, there's more to the picture, and I fight that urge to be like, and we know what it is.
Yeah.
But I think I'm always connected to there was some, and he's quite the atheist, I believe, but he was basically like, some people think the consciousness is a problem that human beings are incapable of solving, which kind of feels like a cop-out. But this guy was basically saying, like, a dog could never conceive of algebra. And in that same sense, human beings can't conceive of this consciousness.
Right.
But at the same time, he believes that, but still believes that it's an epiphenomenon. So I think that's kind of like, it's like kind of having your cake and eating it too, in a way.
Yeah.
But I think in there, that's where I'm like, well, I'm not a strict atheist, I think, in that sense. And I'll think kind of fruitily when I take my shrooms and I do my various drugs. I think like, oh, maybe like we're part of a thing. Yeah. And that's about as far as I can go.
Yeah, no, I think I have agnostic leanings, certainly. And I think I do see like the awe and mystery in things, but I feel like I'm atheist in the strict sense. It's just the easiest way to. I don't know what label you used exactly, but yeah, it was.
Fideist, but then you explain and people go. I would say probably like a pantheist, but then people think something very specific too, where it's like a mother, like hugging everybody, and so it's like, well, it's not that.
It
will be nice, but I think that's just why astrology bugs me, and I feel like it's become like socially so acceptable to like be like, what's your sign? And it bothers me because I feel like it puts me in the position to either not express myself honestly, which is, oh, I don't think that's anything. Like it forces me to either like be like, I'm a Leo, or be rude.
Are you a Leo? Because like my theory is sometimes that people who have bad signs are the ones who don't like astrology.
So funny.
And so I'm an Aries, which is like, I think one of the, good signs when you read it. But I would also think Leo would be
that's
a
very
good
funny.
sign.
Yeah.
So,
well, but that's what they go. You're courageous. I'm like, well, you're already off the mark. But yeah, I think it just bothers me. The reason it bothers me is because I have to confront it more often.
Yeah.
I also don't like it when Hasidic Jews approach me and want me to do the tefillin. Like, I'm like, I feel like you're forcing me to be rude. I don't think this is a thing. If you want to wrap this around your arm and do the thing, be my guest. But I don't like that you force me to go.
Yeah. Makes sense. Makes sense.
All right. Let's go on to just our next quick segment.
This has got to stop.
This has got to stop. Do you remember the email?
Oh, yeah, I do remember
Is there a This Has Got to Stop?
I do have a This Has Got to Stop. So, do you remember Brene Brown and the whole being vulnerable thing? Like, remember when it was, like, really in to be vulnerable? This was, like, in 2013, 2015, whatever. Like, there was this, like, she was, like, she had a TED Talk I think she's a psychologist or social worker, on the power of vulnerability. Have you not heard of it? For some reason, I thought it had seeped deeply into popular culture.
I certainly went through the TED Talk. I remember when TED Talks were the thing.
Oh, yes, totally.
Oh, my God.
This is so millennial of us,
I could have seen it for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there was this whole craze where like being vulnerable was like really popular, and how it was like it's so good to be like vulnerable in your relationships and everything. And I think that there is like a level of truth to that, but I think it's been taken a little too far. And I think now we see in like the Gen Z era, people turn being vulnerable into oversharing on the internet and just constantly being vulnerable and sharing these parts of yourself all the time. And I think one thing that should stop is maybe we should not be so vulnerable all the time. Like, I think vulnerability has a place in personal relationships.
When you say
for
vulnerability,
instance, I don't know if it has a place on the internet. And I think we should be very selective with what we share about ourselves on the internet.
Is it a kind, because as a comedian,
I mean,
I share a lot about my life in a jokey way.
Yeah.
But I certainly...
You kind of have to as a comedian. The rest of us don't, but like, sure. I see that you have to for material.
And also just as like I'm a first person artist where like I don't even have the capability to, I just like writing about, that's just where my thoughts go. What's
so
an
very
example
Leo
of something?
You.
So what?
So very Leo of you.
So like, what's something that you're like someone shared? Like, is it that I'm feeling really sad today?
Okay, so I had a personal story that maybe illustrates this. So I was on a podcast a little bit earlier this month, and the podcast host, I like her a lot, but she wrote this like. For her like Substack, she wrote this piece about me and my TikTok, where she commented on like how my TikTok brand is like so neutral. She was like, he was so neutral, I wondered if he was even gonna have a personality when I talked to him. And this, she sort of just made these comments about like me not having a personality, and I sort of jokingly responded to it on TikTok, and we chatted about it, so like no hard feelings to her, but in my response on TikTok, I kind of talked about how like it can sometimes feel nice to have this level of distance from my audience, where I am not like oversharing, where I am not like saying things about me personally. Instead, I'm just talking about the science, and I inject pieces of my personality into it, but yeah, no, I feel like a lot of like young people especially feel like kind of pressured to overshare to go viral on the internet, and there are all these like TikTok trends where people are
like you like disapproving of a result, or like they want you to have your opinion on it.
Yeah, and I throw that in sometimes, but I try to make it less about like my hot takes and more just like about the science, and I feel like feels better for me too to have that level of distance. That way I can like actually, deal with having that many like TikTok followers and stuff without feeling like, oh God, they're all like judging me for me. Instead, people are commenting on the science. They often don't talk about me. And maybe that's, Maybe that's also just me. I probably couldn't do what you do, the crowd work, the being a comedian, the everything like that. Like that's
few people
that.
can. But I thought it was interesting.
Yeah.
One of your videos, you were talking about free will, and you're basically, it felt like, and I could be misinterpreting, you were trying to leave room for free will to possibly be there, but you kind of said lots of studies have shown most of it is predetermined. And in a way, it felt like cake and eat it too, to a degree of like, if you were to go on full on a determinist and go, hey guys, there's no such thing as free will. So here's a study about it, that you would get a lot of pushback. Our whole society is based on the concept of free will. Arguably, we can't even think without believing people have free will.
Yeah.
But it felt like you were trying to leave the room for the people who do want to believe it. You were like, well, we haven't proven it entirely.
Well, but we haven't. Like, I mostly wanted to be scientifically accurate because, there kind of isn't a way to disprove free will at this point. There's ways to argue that a lot of things are based on genetics or based of our environment, and to say where's the room for free will early. But who knows, we could discover something about the brain or consciousness, which we still know very little about, that shows that maybe there is some free will in that explanation. So no, I can't disprove, but I guess what I was trying to get at is a lot of neuroscientists just don't believe in free will, because I think once you've spent a lot of time sort of looking at these findings, you're like, I don't really see where it fits into the explanation. So that's kind of what I was getting at. But yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
I don't know
no, it's just I just sometimes I think one of the struggles of science communication is there was some book, again, this was like a phase of my life that I was really deep in it. And then, you know what? It was someone who was getting a PhD in philosophy at Columbia was like, come to one of my lectures sometime. People can pop by. And I went there and I was like, oh, I'm stupid. It was about time and slices of time. And I swear I didn't understand a fucking word that was said. And I think I felt so stupid. I said, oh, I will only be able to understand maybe the level above the layman, but I will never be able to understand the intricacies of what anyone's actually talking about. And thus, I will always be like, did you see The Menu, the movie The Menu?
No.
There's some scene, some guy is a big foodie, and the chef kind of forces him to cook in front of, he's like, oh, you like cooking? Cook a meal for us. And it's like this, and then he is so humiliated, he kills himself, essentially. Oh, spoiler.
Okay.
But it's it's the same thing where it's like, if I talk to a philosopher, they talk to me the same way someone comes up to me after a show, like, my friends say I'm funny. And I felt something about the, being stupid. I think that's what it was.
It sounds like she probably wasn't communicating properly for our audience, because if she had something open to the public or whatever, because if it was to other experts, then it might make sense that you don't understand, because you're not stupid. It just,
we finally got there.
That
was where we wanted this podcast to go.
From what I can tell, of course, you seem very intelligent.
I'm going to walk into the door when this is done, just bang my head by accident. So you'll see.
But yeah, it seems like she wasn't communicating properly. And something I try to do is I practice as much as I can communicating to just very general audiences, because it's the curse of knowledge. You forget the more that you study something, that certain terms aren't known by regular people. At the physics conference, I was throwing around this term heuristic, and everyone was like, what's heuristic? And I was like, oh, you guys don't know that? And or even words like in
define heuristic for our listeners and not for me.
Yeah, heuristic is essentially a mental shortcut. It's some sort of process that you'll use to some sort of cognitive shortcut you'll use to
sure.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of a good example. One is I think the heuristic example I was using, because we were talking about trust in scientists, is that as a heuristic for ourselves, we will trust the scientific consensus around, if you do trust scientists, around what they believe, instead of going out there and researching yourself. That's a heuristic for us. So that's a popular term in psychology. Even words like in-group or out-group, because I do a lot of research on sort of group dynamics. So in-group is like the group you're a part of. So if you're a Democrat, other Democrats are your in-group. Republicans would be your out-group. Sometimes I learn people don't know those words. So it is sometimes like I forget that people don't know certain like I forget that these aren't words that are just part of like general discourse, and that they're like more academic words and everything. So I think you really, if you want to be a science communicator, you have to just be really actively talking to just regular people and people on TikTok.
All right, let's go to our last segment.
You better count your blessing.
You better count your blessing. It's where we say something that we're thankful for. Is there something? It can be specific, broad, something that you feel good about. I'll go. Mine's super specific. My super came by my kitchen sink. The water pressure has sucked so much for like 2 years now. And I finally called the super. He came over, and 10 seconds later, he must have moved something, changed the head, and it's like my whole life is different.
Oh wow!
And this won't happen after this. But I am literally excited to do the dishes with this new water pressure.
Wow.
Just to see how much faster it is. And Ramon, I don't think you'll listen to this podcast, but I appreciate you. You're a very good super.
Yeah, it's the little things like that.
It's the little things
that matter.
And sometimes these poor supers, it's the landlord's the shitty one, and the super is great.
Okay.
And the super is like that middle person that gets caught in the crosshairs. And Ramon, I think I gave him a $200 tip for the holidays. I thought that was nice.
Oh wow, okay.
I think that's good.
I don't know what the what's like normal around tipping in New York with supers.
I was normally doing 100, and then Tova moved in.
Okay.
And so I said like, okay, we got.
Okay, I mean that seems very nice to me. I don't know.
You're like, oh fuck, I gotta go.
I'm like, should I? Well, because it's like NYU's dealing with my housing, so I don't.
NYU can tip the goddamn super. How much money did they take? Jesus Christ, NYU.
But I don't know. I'm supposed to what the people do. But yeah, no. That was nice. I guess my blessings is I was home in Portland with my family for the last 5 weeks, and it was really nice just to be with family and also to be away from the craziness of New York, especially in the winter, like just to skip January in New York. I mean, now I'm here in February, which is like also,
It's those 2 months. It's never November, December. I always remember I've had my worst days, the coldest days in February.
Yeah. No, February is like a sad month, but yeah, it was just nice to be around family, nice to be kind of where the air is like fresh and there's like more green and stuff. This is my first like winter in New York. I was visiting here last summer for 3 months, and summer in New York's just like incredible. Like I love it, but winter is tough. So
all right, so this is coming out Valentine's Day. I know you're not a comedian, but is there anything you want to plug? I mean, your TikTok, your handle.
Oh yeah. Sure, you can follow me on TikTok at Steve Psychology. My Twitter is SteveRathJ2. So yeah, just check me out there.
Hell yeah, we will put all this in the show notes, the links. For me, this is a big week, guys. Remember, if you're not in these places I'm performing, you can tell your friends who live there to go. I am going to be headlining for Valentine's Day, West Nyack. It's called Levity. It's a great comedy club. Then Thursday night, I will be headlining in Vancouver for JFL Vancouver. And then the 17th through the 19th, I'm doing Laughs in Seattle. So it's a big show weekend. Tell your friends to come on out. We have another live Downside recording on February 27th, 7 p.m. at Sesh Comedy Club. Tickets are just $10. Our live recordings have been so good. That's if you saw the clip with Dusty Ray Bottoms from RuPaul's Drag Race, that was from a live recording. Leah Janine's coming out soon. Come to that, New York City, Sesh Comedy Club. Ticket link in the description. And if you can't make it, you can watch it in full or listen to it. Patreon.com/downside. I'll be the one to say it, ladies and gentlemen. There is no such thing as free will. This is the downside.
You're listening to The Downside.
The Downside.
With Gianmarco Soresi.